Today on Sports Central, we're going to be going over another 2020 schedule preview, and this one's going to be over the Mississippi State Bulldogs, a team that had a decent season in 2019, ended up going 6-7, so it was pretty average. It was a little bit disappointing as well, but nonetheless, in this video, we're going to be going over a few players that Mississippi State will be losing, a few players that this team will be returning, and also we're going to be going over their schedule for the first time this offseason. Once again, they went 6-7 in 2019. And for the game since November, they beat Arkansas 54-24 on November 2nd, lost to Alabama in a big one, 7-38. They did beat Abilene Christian 45-7, also beat Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl 21-20. But overall, it was a little bit of a disappointment at the end of the year as they ended up losing to Louisville in their bowl game 28-38. As for the trend for this team this season, between September and October, they were 3-5, and between November and the postseason, they were 3-2. So, really, overall, it was a pretty inconsistent year for Mississippi State. They did have a pretty tough schedule, but nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see with all the losses that this team is having, which is what we're going over next, to see how they're going to do in this 2020 season. They lose their top quarterback, Tommy Stevens, but they do return their second quarterback, Garrett Schrader. Both these quarterbacks put up very equal action. Tommy Stevens had just over 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 380 rushing yards. As for Garrett Schrader, almost the exact same thing, 1,100 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and nearly 600 rushing yards. So Garrett Schrader was a much more dual threat quarterback as he almost put up 600 rushing yards. And the touchdown interception ratio was a bit better for Tommy Stevens as well. But nonetheless, losing Tommy Stevens will be a bit of a change for this team, no doubt about that. So that could be a little bit concerning going into next season. But I do expect Garrett Schrader pretty much to take over full time going into 2020. The biggest loss on this team, though, is Kylan Hill. He put up over 1,500 yards. He is going to the NFL draft, so that's good for him, but for Mississippi State, not as much. He also put up 11 touchdowns this season, which is huge. And then there are 3 wide receivers, Nick Gibson, Cyrus Mitchell, and actually no, Nick Gibson is another running back. He ended up putting up nearly 500 yards as well. So once again, this was a very big rushing team last season, as they had over 2,000 yards of rushing. And then the quarterbacks as well, between those two quarterbacks and Stevens and Schrader, they put up nearly 900 yards combined rushing wise. As far as the wide receivers go, they returned their top wide receiver, Cyrus Mitchell, and he had just over 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. So overall, I mean, that's a good return, but he didn't really have all that big of an impact on this team this entire season. So I think he'll get a lot more action, though, next year, no doubt about that, because they're losing Dedrick Thomas and Goodry. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but nonetheless, those 2 wide receivers, or second and third, are both going to be gone going into next season. They also lose their top tight end, Farrell Green. It really didn't put up a whole lot of yards as well, but it's still a loss for this offense, so you got to know that. They lose 2 on the offensive line, 3 defensive linemen, 1 linebacker, along with 3 in the secondary. So this defense is losing 7 starters, and that is really, really concerning to me. I mean, especially on the defensive line. I mean, man, they're not going to be able to put much pressure on the quarterback this upcoming season, losing 3 defensive linemen. And yeah, that's certainly concerning for me. So yeah, major losses on both sides of the ball. They also have new head coach Mike Leach. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in his first year taking over for Mississippi State. But nonetheless, I think it could be a bit of a rebuilding year for Mississippi State. Once again, when you lose your top 2 running backs and Kylan Hill and Nick Gibson, 2 running backs that put up over 2,000 yards combined, that is going to be brutal. And also losing your second and third wide receivers and a quarterback as well, it's going to be tough for Mississippi State next season to be able to match how they did this season. Nonetheless, here's your first look at their 2020 schedule. You start off the season against New Mexico on September 5th. Then you travel to NC State September 12th. And then you get Arkansas on the 19th. So overall, those first 3 games are certainly winnable. Honestly, your first 4 are, especially with Tulane the next week. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Mississippi State start 4-0. But then it starts to get much tougher. You play Texas A&M, a team that could be really good next season. Then 2 absolutely brutal road games in back-to-back weeks with Alabama and LSU. And then Auburn, Missouri, and Kentucky, as well as Alabama, A&M, and Ole Miss. So really, this schedule compared to most SEC teams isn't all that bad. You don't have to play Georgia. You don't have to play Tennessee, which is going to be a team that's likely going to be pretty good next season. Florida as well. So overall for Mississippi State, the door is wide open to possibly make a bowl game once again. But once again, you do have 2 really tough games with Alabama and LSU. And if you do end up losing those games, which I do kind of expect them to, you're gonna have to bounce back in that November, or else you're probably gonna be endangered of not making a bowl game. But here's kind of what I expect here. I think that they're gonna go 4-8 to 6-6. Once again, with all the losses, it's going to be brutal to be able to put up the numbers that you did last year. It's going to be a challenge, certainly, and some of these games are certainly brutal. Once again, Texas A&M is not going to be an easy matchup, and then Alabama and LSU, I'm expecting those to be losses, but I am giving Mississippi State 3 guaranteed wins, and those are 3 of the non-conference games with New Mexico, Tulane, and Alabama A&M. But once again, that is about it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Mississippi State. I hate to be a downer on this Mississippi State team going into next season, but I just think with all the losses, once again, it's just really tough. And then having a whole new head coach and having to get used to that, it's going to be tough. I mean, Mike Leach is a great coach, certainly no doubt about that, but there's just too many losses on this team, in my opinion. It's going to be a whole new environment going into next season as well, and that kind of concerns me a little bit. But once again, record estimation for this: 4-8 to 6-6. We'll be going over Mississippi State once again in the summer with our official prediction, where we will be going over every one of these 12 games on this list. But thank you guys all for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Mississippi State in the comments below. I do know it's very early on, as well as we're just in late January, but that's kind of the point of schedule previews. Thank you guys all for watching, though. Once again, stay tuned for more from All Sports Central, and I will see you all later.